What's happening, MuniciPals? I want to talk to you about the brand new golf ball markers from Matchstick Golf. The golf season upon us, and the Masters is right around the corner, and Matchstick is ramping up and raring to go. They've recently released two markers in collaboration with Manzanita Links, one of Oregon's best coastal golf courses. You can get King Sevi, the Seagull, or the Spirit of Oregon crest right now. Or if you want something more formal, grab the all new Bachelor Cash Stack, an all new marker featuring a wad of $100 bills bound with a black bow tie and finished in gold. It's perfect for a bachelor party gift for your groomsmen. And of course, you can always use code MUNICIPALS at checkout for 20% off your first order. Head to matchstickgolf.com, get all new ball markers at a great price. Matchstick Golf, set fire to the greens.
How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, MuniciPals? This is Big C. We got Ashton and our boy, Mr. ZX7, aka Nick. We are talking final fitting. If any of you guys tuned in to the episode prior, you know that Nick and Ashton were coming up to PDX to get fitted by your boy. It was an amazing time. Gains were found. New clubs will be purchased. We are going to get into this. So this is going to be a great episode. And this is going to be great for anybody that hasn't gone through a proper fitting process, especially at a fitting studio. There's a massive difference, and we kind of went into it when in the last episode about, you know, your big box store style fittings to what an actual fitting studio has to offer. And you know, Ashton's already been through it. This is Nick's kind of first time going through a fitting studio kind of situation, and it's a game changer. I mean, when you have that many options to be able to run through, to be able to dial yourself in to get the proper setup, it's night and day. So let's get into it, fellas. What's happening? How you guys doing?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to get into it. It was a hell of a weekend, and looking forward to recapping it.
Yeah, things are good. I mean, we're recording a week late, so just talking to Nick before you jumped on, Chris, feeling the post Masters blues a little bit, but it's definitely invigorating to come on and talk to you guys, because a lot of what we'll share, I think, is just we'll give specifics, but also feelings. And yeah, we were absolutely exhausted after spending, we were up in the studio. Sounds like we're a fucking producer in the studio till like 1 a.m. both nights. But yeah, there was definitely some shots we hit where it's like, wow, that feels very, very different. It was super cool to see a lot of your assumptions for me turn out to be correct. So super excited to dive in.
Yeah, it's funny how seasonality starts for golf equipment and fittings after the Masters. Everybody watches the Masters, and then April, May, June, July is kind of like the go time for anybody in the equipment industry. I don't know what it is about the Masters. It gets people excited, juiced to get out there. I guess the coming of spring is upon us, other than it's snowing in Portland today, which was absolutely fucking nuts. But I think it just gets people invigorated, excited for the coming season, getting back into golf. So yeah, so the boys came up. We got them into the studio, and just like we talked in the last pod, kind of how we go about the fitting process is usually I stick with one customer, but since I had Nick and Ashton there, we kind of went back and forth fitting each one of them. Irons first, and we went at, Nick, then Ashton, then we switched to the different clubs, and we kind of went back and forth there just to give them a little bit of a break so we could get through the full bags without tiring them out too much. Because if you ever go into a studio fitting, one thing you want to watch is your swing counts. It is immense. It's a lot of swings. It's a lot of shots hit, make sure you don't get into rapid fire, because you want to make sure that you get the perfect fit. Because if you start getting tired, then you're getting skewed numbers. You're not going to be able to get into the perfect fit. So make sure you're watching out on that. But basically what we did, we started out with Nick. We started with irons, got him warmed up, got him in the bay, hit some stock shots with his irons, and then kind of went from there. And Nick was hitting his stock irons about 155, 160 total for a 6-iron. So what we fit everybody off of is a 6-iron. So we were hitting, close to 155, 160. What I love to do is I love to keep a constant with all of my fittings. So I picked the closest head to what Nick was playing. And so because Nike clubs are no longer made, I went with Strixon ZX5, which would have been very close to kind of the V Pro Forge that he played from Nike. So we went through that. We worked through 15, 20 different shafts, finding which one was optimal. And right in the middle of the fitting, we found out that, or middle of the iron fitting, we found out that he was definitely in the 115 gram class of shafts. The weight was just working really well for him. He was getting great trajectories, great numbers off of it. The minute that I switched from stiff to extra stiff in the KBS C-taper lights, it was an absolute game changer for Nick. We went from hitting, shots left and right. And Nick's a high handicap. Nick came into the studio at 21, which he dropped into the teens by the time he left Portland, which was pretty nuts. But we got him into these C-taper light extra stiff 115s, locked him in on P790 heads. And I mean, we went from hitting 160, kind of spraying it all over with his stock shots, to having a dispersion of 5 to 10 yards wide, and went all the way out to 175, 180 with his 6-iron. So the gains were absurd. I mean, the numbers that we were getting, we got him more height, better spin rates. I mean, smash factor was above 140, which anybody that has got fitted, smash factor is club speed divided by the ball speed. So that kind of shows the efficiency that you're actually achieving with the clubs. And so kind of a tour average via TrackMan is a 136. So anything over a 136 is good. If you're in 1.4s, I mean, you're very optimal. And we got Nick into the low 1.4s on average. And with all the other numbers, I mean, we gained a good 20 yards with a tighter dispersion. And the heads that we ended up with were the P790s. And just that combination of those extra stiff C-taper lights with those heads were just insane. Nick, give a little input there. I know you were just like blown away, shocked when we like knocked it out of the park with that setup.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I was totally knocked out of the park. Totally shocked rather by what a difference the shafts made. Also the heads, of course, but I don't want to say I was super skeptical coming in, but I am a higher handicapper, like you said, and I sort of felt like there's definitely going to be my game was going to place a limitation on the gains that I was going to see. I went in with an open mind, but wasn't expecting to be blown away, but I really was blown away. Like you said, I picked up 20 yards easy, 25 yards with the right shaft and head combo. And the big thing that I noticed a huge difference on beyond the distance and the numbers and the dispersion and everything, which was all very evident on the screen in front of us. But the feel of everything, when you got the right combo in my hands of those C-tapers, that made the biggest difference. But the P790s as well, when that combo was in my hands, it just felt smooth. It felt like I was puring everything. There was no like clankiness or no jarring when I hit it off the toe or off the heel or whatever. It all felt so good. So it made me a believer right away. I was skipping away from that iron fitting just as giddy as could be, because obviously did a great job and put me in the right shit. But like the feel was the big thing that made a big difference. And can't wait to get those in the mail and start gaming them.
And
Nick, you were saying the feel. That's something that I'm curious because it's not my turn yet, but I want to articulate as well. You were saying smooth, but like, can you talk a little bit more about what that feeling is? Like, was it when you were standing over it that the club felt lighter? Was it like that, like when you made contact, the way, because I think you could, if once you become a better ball striker, which you are, you can sort of feel the flex as you make contact. Like, I just want you to keep pulling on like that feel factor. And it may just say, dude, I don't know, I just was flushing it. But what was that feeling to you, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, it was at contact is where I would notice it. I mean, I would in the back. So there's actually 2 points. So the shafts that I had before my old Nike irons, I would feel like I could lose at the top of the backswing. One of my swing flaws that I have is I have a backswing that gets too long, and I can get too quick in transition, and kind of lose the club in the backswing. And the shafts immediately changed that. It felt like I was very much in control at the top of my backswing. And I felt more confident that I knew where the club face was and that I could deliver it to the ball repeatedly. And I think the shot dispersions clearly showed that, right? The screen showed that, the numbers showed that. But even more on the feelsy end, what you can't really see on the screen is at impact, it just felt like I was puring everything, which I don't often get with my Nike irons. If I hit it right on the button, I know it and it feels great. And if I flush it, I know it feels great. But I was feeling that every single time with the shaft and head combo that Chris put me in. So being able to instantaneously change that was shocking to me. I could not have been more excited about the immediate feedback that I was getting, 15 minutes into this fitting. So Chris made me a believer right away.
And it's got to make you feel too. I mean, like, we were sort of joking the next day when we were hitting bad shots, like, gosh, it's not the new clubs, right? But it is kind of what it's got to be jarring for you, especially as a new golfer, where, like, to your point, like, and I saw it as well as like, the distances start being like within a couple yards of each other, right? So those moments around, like, I know for me, like my sort of classic is like when I don't make a full backswing, for me, I kind of just dump it short left, for y'all short right. So like the way I always think about it is a 170-yard par 3 bunker on the left. I just sort of hit an uncompetitive shot that goes in the front bunker. But like sometimes what I was feeling with my irons as well is like, I wonder if that would have got on the green still, right? And that's got to be kind of jarring where it's like, yeah, you certainly hit bad shots still, but these clubs I think are going to fill in that gap a lot where it's like you have the ability to like, it's great if like you flushed every time, but I don't think you have to necessarily. Builds in because it's the right setup. It actually builds a buffer. And that's what I'm feeling. And I'm curious if you are too, because like you have just more of a buffer because you might not lose it because the equipment's not going to let you lose the face, for example, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I am on board with that take completely. I'm really excited. They're not going to get here for another few months, but I'm really excited to see what it's going to do. Especially, you mentioned it for like correct distance control or club selection out of the bag. I feel way more confident that when I pull a 6-iron now, I know it's going to go 180, and I can be confident I'm going to clear something that's 165. So. Really excited to report back on those results in a few months.
And one thing I'll speak on, I always talk to all my customers about this. Feel is relative to the efficiency that you bring to the ball. So if you're hitting center face, your feel is always going to be good no matter what head or shaft combination I'm putting you in. So, it's always going to be the best feeling of all of the setups that we find because one, you're finding the center of the face. Two, the numbers are looking the best out of everything. So it's a slight placebo effect as well. where it kind of creates that in your brain that, holy shit, these feel incredible because the numbers are there, everything you see on the screen is there, and then you're hitting the center of the face, aka the smash factor shows that you're being efficient with the club. So all of those are relative to what feel it contributes to. So I think that's something that you guys definitely saw. And I mean, the feel, it comes along with definitely being a forged iron or something that's a little bit more forgiving, especially with the P790s, because they are a hollow body design with the foam infusion inside that allows you to kind of hit it a little bit more all over the face, and it's still going to do what you want it to do. And then by going from KBS 90 shafts that you were in to a 25 gram heavier shaft, going from stiff to extra stiff for you because you have the speed to be able to, achieve those numbers with an extra stiff shaft. And that's what tightened up your dispersion big time as well, was going away from a more flexible shaft, something that's stiffer, going to be a little bit more like a board that's keeping you on plane, keeping you towards your target instead of causing you to either flip it over or have these whooping left to right fades. It really kind of contributes to all of that. So finding that extra stiff, heavier shaft combination, but still light enough to generate the speed that you were getting to get those, extra 20, 25 yard gains, dramatically changed your whole setup. And then when we got to Ashton, he has a fairly good setup. And Ashton's a lower handicap in the single digits. So getting him kind of dialed in, it wasn't necessarily finding more distance, which crazy enough we did. But it was really tightening up his dispersion. So one shaft that I really wanted him to try, and we didn't start with it because I didn't want to, go straight to what I thought he would fit in. But we tried some other options, and then we went into the LA Golf shafts. So we started out with Mizuno head because Ashton plays Mizunos at the moment. So again, with that constant, I want to stay with something that's familiar to him. So we went with the Mizuno, played with a couple other shafts. Then we got to the LA Golf shafts. And so the LA Golf shafts that we ended up fitting Ashton in are the 105 gram extra stiff A series. And so these guys are just monsters. I personally play them myself, lighter, more flexible version than what we got Ashton in. Ashton is basically in the same flex as Bryson, but with a lighter weight. And I mean, these guys are boards, absolute boards. But putting Ashton in these and then matching it up with a Mira head, which for Ashton, a big thing was getting height. And Mira heads are more of what I call 90s stock degrees. And what I mean by that is the technology has definitely changed over time. And with hollow body designs, that has improved the technology in irons. But what has really changed in irons is everybody is making their irons stronger lofted. And when I say that, a stock pitching wedge back in the 90s was 46, 48 degrees around there. Now you're seeing a lot of companies going with 44, 45 degree pitching wedges. So they're flying further because now you're hitting 9 irons basically instead of pitching wedges. And so it's going to go further if you have less loft on it. Very obvious. So for Ashton, getting him something that's more of a 90 stock, which is a 46 degree pitching wedge, it allowed us to be able to get him a little bit more height, especially because we were going in an extra stiff shaft. But with the lighter weight, he was able to generate more speed, which in turn got him more height, better spin rates, tighter dispersion, especially with these shafts that are probably one of the boardier shafts on the market. And then adding those higher lofted, iron heads, it was just an absolute game changer. And we went from hitting your stock setup only like 75, 80 feet off the ground, which for a 6 iron, that is real low. He was hitting just low missiles that were going about 180 yards. And then when we finished up with your iron fit, I think you were hitting 190, 200 with these irons, and we were getting them 110 feet in the air with the proper spin rate. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen you hit iron. I played a lot of golf with you, and I've never seen you hit irons in a tighter dispersion bucket than you were hitting with these. I mean, it was incredible.
No, I mean, I went into mainly for my proverbial pocketbook. I told you, I said I had no intention of changing my irons, and the hard part is that you know, it feels like a therapy session saying this, but you know, I've always like wanted mirrors, like in theory, right? It's like you know, I don't know, some people like want to collect old convertibles or something. Like I've always wanted mirrors. Well, always. Until I met you, I didn't know what Mira was until I met you. So this is all new. But I wanted mirrors, and when you put that in my hand, I was like, I think I looked at you and I was like, nah, dog, like, nah. And you're like, just hit it. And then I hit like 6 in a row, and multiple times I'd have you guys like, I think you basically gave me you don't get serious with me often, but you were like, you're going to buy these fucking irons and you're going to like it. Like, shut the fuck up. These are the best irons like I've ever seen you hit. But it was just incredible. And I think the big thing that I loved, a couple things. One, the shafts, you said, because they were lighter. I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I talked to my dad about this weekend. When I'm over like a 6 iron or a 5 iron, the reason I hate my 5 iron as opposed to like a hybrid is I feel like I have to do something. I feel like I get tense, and I feel like it's almost like I have to swing harder to make it happen, which is, I know, completely opposite, but I get all tense over a 6 iron. And having that 6 iron that was just, it felt so much lighter than my 6 iron. I felt freed up just to swing. And like you said, I mean, I don't think the numbers were that far, but we kind of liked it. Like, I want my 6 iron to go like 180. This was going like 186 with those old school, you know, like lofts you were talking about. Because I was hitting the Mizunos, like if I pulled a Mizuno, I was hitting like 210 6 irons. That's not what we want, right? But I think the lightness was a big deal. And then Chris, also too, I mean, I could say it, but I won't, because you were the one who told me your theory about the mirrors I ended up about the smaller head. Can you talk about that? Because I think you're onto something with that. I definitely felt it.
So for a guy that's played a lot of golf, and anybody that is a fairly good ball striker like Ashton is, you can tend to lean towards the more player iron, smaller head, but still have forgiveness in a cavity back. And so the 801 Miras are a much smaller profile than the majority of heads on the market. And what that tends to lend to a good ball striker is it doesn't give you a lot of room for mistakes. So when you go and hit the ball, it's a good and bad thing, because yeah, a smaller head if you're not as good of a ball striker as Ashton is, you're going to hit it on the toe, you're going to hit it on the heel, and you're going to get these shots that are only going to go 140, 150, where you're normally going to hit them 185, and you're going to have issues there. But for a good ball striker like Ashton, it doesn't give him a lot of space to be able to hit it toey or heely, so it lends him to be able to hit the center of the face more. By not having as big of a strike spot and a smaller sweet spot for him, it actually lends him to hit that position of the face over and over again more often. It sounds kind of counterintuitive to what you would want, more forgiving, larger head, all of that kind of stuff. But it's the same reason that pros don't play like the stealth iron heads or like the Callaway Rogue heads. Like, they could, and it would be some absurd numbers, but when you're looking to get tighter dispersion, better, specific spin rates, and Ashton already hits the ball really well, so I had to really nitpick certain things. And then the minute that we got him into those mirror heads, it was just the same number repeatedly over and over and over again in the same exact spot. And so when Ashton was like, fuck, I didn't really want to spend money on this shit. And he looked at me, I went fucking silent. I went straight back to the TrackMan, went straight to the Miras, and I just kept clicking all the different numbers of what he was hitting, and just the same shot tracer was on the same line on each single one. And I just stared at him and just kept clicking them. And then he was just like, I get it. And I'm like, I'm just showing you, like, the numbers and the shot tracer in TrackMan is showing you exactly what you came in here for. And that was tightened dispersion, slightly more distance, more height, better spin rates that are allowing you to have that stopping power on the greens when you approach them. One thing people don't realize, it's always cool to see your ball go really far, but if your ball is landing at 170 yards and rolling out to 190, you're not going to play good golf. When you have that big of difference between your carry and your total distance, you're not going to be able to stick any greens. You need to have a proper landing angle, which is, 45, 46 degrees. You need to have a proper spin rate where 6-iron, you need to be 55 to 6,000 RPMs to be able to have stopping power on a green. You don't want it to roll out more than 8 to 10 yards. And that's one thing that we achieved with Nick and Ashton by getting those proper numbers so that their irons are able to be hit into greens on par threes, approach shots, all of those things that are going to allow them to attack pins, attack portions of the greens that they're looking to get at, and have it stay there. Because nothing is more infuriating than fucking hitting a green and having it roll fucking 10 yards off the back end into the back bunker. Like, that's just going to fucking drive you crazy. Or get flyers where the thing's just going to fucking shoot over the green into the back bunker or even further. Like, we don't need those type of things. So achieving those heights and spin rates and everything like that were massively key. And then we kind of shifted gears into woods. And
wait, no, Chris, real quick, just to chime in, one thing I just wanted to say, I should have said this earlier, that, like, not everyone's going to be lucky enough to go get fit by one of their friends with one of their friends. But the thing that I want to try to, like, communicate through an audio medium is, like watching Nick find that 6-iron shaft combo and, like, watching how much he was, like, buzzing. Like, I can't emphasize how much Nick was buzzing. Like, it was just, I just want to say here, memorialize, like, how fun it was. Like, Nick was about to, like, jump through the ceiling. Like, he was so happy and he was so stoked. And just, like, that feeling of, like, and Chris, that's where, like, you're doing, like, the Lord's work, because, like, as golfers, like, watching, like, Nick just be so joyful was just really, really fun. Because, again, we've had to have our own therapy sessions where Nick is so kind, where he's like, we've made jokes. Is it going to be good for Chris? Is the numbers going to be good for Chris? Am I going to be able to put swings on for Chris? And to watch Nick in, over the course of 45 minutes go from, like, I'm not even sure I can give Chris what he needs, to watching Nick hit 180-yard stripes and just him buzzing. I just want to, like, memorialize it, because, like, it was really fucking fun to watch.
Well, and that's why I like doing my job. I mean, that's why I love what I do so much. And if anybody knows me, like, Ashton gives me shit all the fucking time. And he said it on the podcast all the time. I say, as a club fitter.
To be honest, what are you talking about?
So
are you a coach?
Coach kids? Am I coach? But, like, I love it so much. Like, and when I get to work with guys like Nick and Ashton and all the customers that I have come in, it is just the best feeling when that combination just comes down and it clicks and it works for that person, and you just see them light up. Like, when a guy stripes a ball and then turns to you and, like, gives you that, like, shocked, like, open-eyed, like, open-mouth stare, and you're just like, yeah, uh-huh. That's what it's supposed to feel like. That's what a good setup feels like. And they're just like, I don't give a fuck what price it is. Just write me up. And that's what I'm in the industry for. Like, I'm here because I dedicate my time to really master what I do. And it is a bit of a science. It is a bit of an art. Like, because the stat sheets will say one thing, but when you get a club and a shaft in somebody's hand, it can completely work differently than what the manufacturer is telling you it's supposed to do. So even though you look at these stat sheets or you hear what people tell you with these low flight, high spin, all this bullshit and hoopla that they put on these stat sheets that tell you what these shafts and what these heads are supposed to do, it doesn't fucking matter. It matters how the person addresses the ball, how their swing is, all of that comes into play, where Nick specifically with those extra stiff shafts, like, he was borderline between a stiff and extra stiff with his swing speed. And by just getting him in something stiffer, it was like a game changer. We tried that same shaft in a stiff and an extra stiff, and it was like night and day. And so if you talk to anybody that was just reading off of stat sheets, they would have never fucking put Nick in an extra stiff shaft. But because I wasn't achieving the numbers I wanted to see Nick hit, I was like, well, fuck it. Let's give this shit a shot. Let's throw it in here and see what happens. And sometimes you just fucking making an educated guess. I'm going to be completely honest with people. There is no 100% art or science to this. It sometimes is a complete guess.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think the other thing to mention too is, like, going with that same idea, also just like traditional biases, right? Like, my whole life and up until, Bryson, it was true. But like, if you swung hard, you played steel, period. You didn't play graphite shafts. People who have swing fast, people who are good golfers do not play graphite, right? And like, that graphite, like, I love the mirror heads, but it's really the shafts. And even I told you, my dad needs graphite shafts, but even that's where I did kind of this weekend. I was with him, kind of coaxing him along, asking him what his issues are. And his issue is he hits a 6 iron too low and it doesn't hold greens. And I was like, Dad, he's a ball striker, right? My dad's he shot 75 this weekend with rental clubs. Like, he's a gamer. But I think, like, getting him in the right shaft. So it's also, Chris, for you, it's also battling preconceived notions of people who theoretically know what they're talking about, right? Like, I was put in these X100 shafts 2.5 years ago, and guess what? These LA Golf shafts didn't exist. So, like, my guy did a pretty good job for what existed, but it's also battling the notions of, like, yo, dog, don't put me in graphite shafts. But you're like, technology has changed. That's part of what you got to battle, I imagine, as well.
Yeah.
Because I never would have guessed me or Nick would be in graphite
Well,
shafts.
one thing I can give anybody, take your fucking pride out of it when you come in for a fitting. That's a big thing. If you come in thinking you're a big fucking man, strong man that should only be hitting extra shafts, that's bullshit. Because Nick is in extra stiff iron shafts, but stiff everything else. And that was just what we found that worked for him number-wise. And that can absolutely happen. There's plenty of people that we fit that'll be in an extra stiff driver shaft and then these light soft boys in their irons. And it's what the numbers dictate. And that's the one thing I will give you. That's the advancement in technology that allows people to get these proper fits, is whatever TrackMan shows you, go with it, because it's an expensive piece of equipment that works extremely well. And I mean, if it's TrackMan, if it's Foresight, whatever the fucking launch monitor is that you're using, go with what it tells you, period. And keep your ego at the door. Don't come in with any preconceived notions. Just go with what the numbers tell you, because I promise you it's going to be a good setup for you. It absolutely will be.
Before we move on, do you want to touch on what Ashton said earlier about, me having an awesome time? And it's true. It was incredible. Just the look on my face, I'm sure was I mean, one that I didn't want to wipe off for a long time.
Priceless.
But at the risk of turning this into a game of tummy sticks, I do think that a big piece of that is the give a shit factor from the fitter makes a huge difference, and that's something that we haven't totally touched on. But before we move on, I do want to mention that Chris obviously he's a friend, and so he cares in that way. But having a fitter that is as invested as you are in getting you into the right stuff makes a huge difference. We touched on the last podcast that I came on and did with you guys. I had a terrible fitting at a club champion in Alpharetta, Georgia, or Sandy Springs, Georgia. And the fitter didn't give a shit at all. And it couldn't have been a starker difference to the one that we just did last weekend in Portland with Chris, where, I mean, he was a fucking rock star. We spent we spent all night, 2 nights in a row in the simulator at the club champion, hitting as many balls as we wanted. And Chris was just as invested in getting us into the right stuff as we were. And that made all the difference in the world. So as excited as I was, part of that is because of the fitter and the give a shit factor. So wanted to make sure we touched on that as a key ingredient. And not everybody's going to have, a Chris in their life or somebody they can go to. But that's a big part of this whole picture is the fitter himself and the person, making sure that they actually care about getting you in the right stuff in your game. So.
Yeah, and if any of our listeners are in the Bay Area, our buddy Chris Hussey, I set him up with a fitting at our club champion out in Danville. And my boy Vic out there, shout him out. I mean, he's a big follower of the podcast. I love Vic. Really took care of my boy Hussey. And again, you get a quality fitter that takes care of you, he's going to fit you correctly. And this guy fit Hussey into – Hussey has a brand new driver, so he didn't necessarily need a new head. He needed a new shaft, and he took the time, spent the time to get him dialed in. And Hussey texted me right after he got done with the fitting and just was blown away by the experience. And again, that's because the fitter gave a shit. And if it's you guys or if it's Joe Schmo that's walking through my door, I don't care if you're spending $200 on a putter or if you're dropping $8,000 on this most bespoke set that I fucking have. I'm going to fit you exactly the same. There is no change in how I'm going to do it. And if I can recommend anything to anybody, go and get fitted by, do your research, get on Google, get on Yelp, see what their reviews are, and request that specific fitter that you feel most comfortable going in to see. And if any of our listeners need a suggestion of a good fitter to go to in their area that they live in, please contact us. DM me on MuniciPals or Municipal Big Chris. I will get you in contact with a fitter that I trust within my company that will hook you up and get you in the right setup. So next thing I kind of want to get into is woods with these guys. So Ashton, we're going to start off with him. So he's hybrid boy. Anybody that's listened to us,
absolutely devastated.
He is hybrid boy. So the majority of Ashton's hybrids are good. We didn't really even have to even look at them. They work for him. They get good numbers. There's not really a lot I can do there. And that's one good sign of a fitter as well. If there's a good club in your bag, they're going to tell you to ride it till it dies, till that thing breaks, till the face fucking shatters in. Ride that shit out, because sometimes you fell ass backwards into a setup and it just works. So stick to it. It is what it is. But Ashton's big issue was finding a gap between his 4 hybrid and his driver. He had this 40-yard gap between these two clubs, and it was his biggest issue, I think, in his bag. outside.
That's like 60, man. I mean, like
it was a
my
lot.
high board goes 230, and my driver. I mean, sounds ridiculous to say this out loud, but my driver with roll is going 305.
Yeah.
So if I have like a 70-yard gap.
So back in my old days of Golf Mart, we kind of jimmy rigged this 2 hybrid for him that worked decent. It just flew low, didn't really, get the numbers we were looking for. It was kind of something I just threw together for him. Didn't really work out. And so we tried a bunch of different shafts to kind of maximize that guy out. And I mean, we were getting 240, 250. I mean, it was okay, but we still couldn't get it off the ground. We couldn't get the proper spin rates. We couldn't get the proper height. And then I was like, you know what, Ashton? We're just going to fucking try it. I know you're not a 3-wood guy. This is one of the easiest 3-woods in the world to hit. I mean, ever since TaylorMade bought Adams Golf, their 3-woods and hybrids have been absolute monsters. And so I was like, all right, we're going to put you in the Velix shaft, which I thought was going to work well for your 2 hybrid. Let's get the 3-wood shaft. Let's throw it in the stealth. I mean, the reaction I got from Nick with the irons is the exact reaction I got from fucking Ashton with the 3-wood. It was just absolute game changer. I mean, we were hitting that thing 270, 280 with your 3-wood with the Velix Rome shaft. I mean,
and like cruising. I mean, that's the big thing is like, I don't want to have to wail on it. Like it's going to be a while before I'm comfortable. I don't want to be wailing on a 3-wood, but the fact that I could like on autopilot hit that thing 260. Yeah. I mean, it was great.
I mean, it was
really, really great.
It was crazy. It filled the numbers we were looking for. It got the proper height, great spin, tight dispersion. I mean, all around everything we were looking for to fill that gap in his bag, that thing worked incredibly. So that was probably my biggest revelation for Ashton throughout the fitting, let alone the LA Golf shafts for his irons. But the 3-wood is going to absolutely shave some strokes off of his game. I mean, with what we've got Ashton set up in, there's no reason that he shouldn't get into a 2-3 handicap in the next year, because all the numbers we saw, the dispersions we saw, everything along those lines. I mean, that was Ashton's biggest issue. Anytime that we ever played together, he either Icarito'd it over the green and just fucking launched them long, and then ended up losing a stroke here and there by having to chip on, then 2-putt, and instead of just landing greens in 2-putting. I mean, there's a stroke right there that these irons for him on par 5s, this is going to be an absolute game changer, because he's no longer going to be going for birdies half the time, going for pars. He's going to be going for eagles and birdies now, because now he has a club in his bag that he can attack a green that's wide open with no bunkers in front of it, and just allow the club to do what it's supposed to do. Get him onto the green where he can 2-putt for a birdie or hit a really good putt that's going to land him some eagles. And so those are going to be absolute game changers. And then for Nick, I mean,
what a segue. It was so good. Nick thought, let's do it too.
Yeah. So then we go into Nick, and we have him hitting stuff, and his hybrid works really well. I hate to say it, with anybody that walks in with a fucking rocket ball hybrid or 3-wood from TaylorMade, I always shake my head, because they're still fucking hot as shit. Those things work well. They work for a lot of customers. There's a lot of customers that come in where I'm just like, we're not touching your 3-wood. Those rocket balls were fucking great when they came out. They're still good now. And we really didn't have to fuck with his hybrids at all. I ended up giving him one of mine out of my own bag, because for somehow it did work a little bit better while we were in the studio. Something Nick is still working out there, but we didn't really go into a full fitting for the hybrid. But we went full bore on the 3-wood, and again, same thing. Stealth head, Motori X shaft. It was just perfect. And we were getting 260, 265 carries for Nick with his 3-wood. And then we got into the driver. And this is the first time I saw Nick discouraged. We worked through, oh my God, we worked through pretty much every head that I had. We worked through about 10 to 15 shafts. Nothing, I'm telling you, absolutely nothing was clicking. I thought Nick was getting tired, but it was more just Nick, it just wasn't working. And so Ashton disappears, and I look at Nick, and I have a bunch of spare drivers that I own personally. I just go into the back. I grab one of my spare drivers that I have in the back that doesn't work for me. It's a Srixon ZX7 with a Ventus black Velocore shaft and a 6 stiff. And I was just like, let's just try this. Let's see what happens. I hand it to Nick and I said, Nick, I want you to fucking hit this thing hard. I want you to swing as hard as you fucking can. First swing, 275 straight down the fucking middle. Second swing, 269 straight down the fucking middle. Ashton then pops out of the fucking bathroom, and Nick is hitting another one, 278 straight down the middle.
I think I was the one who told Nick to swing hard.
Then you disappeared. You're
making me sound like I'm a bad friend who's like, disappearing.
I don't remember who told me to swing hard. I really don't. But it did. I mean, the issues that we were running into with the drivers, I was just my swing speed was like 90 or something, like some ridiculous number. I was all in my head. I was like crazy technical. I was like,
your driver was flying 170.
Yeah, it was like going 170 yards. And I did. We you can change all the shaft and head combinations that you want, but if I'm putting a horrendous swing on it repeatedly, nothing's going to work. And then finally, whichever one of you said it, like, hey, just fucking hit the thing. That made the difference. And then I started actually putting good swings on the driver. It was a mental deal for me. I don't know, but I love the Srixon that you put me in, dude. It's been great.
So we went and played Astoria Country Club with our boy Matty Brown, and then we went and played the reserve here in Portland the next day. And I mean, it was a weapon for Nick, like a absolute fucking weapon. It was absurd. And after we got Nick set up, Ashton's all excited. He's all juiced after Nick's going. What's up, Nick?
Quick little anecdote from that round at Astoria Country Club. Like you said, the driver was a weapon. I was crushing it, and on, like, I don't know, maybe it was like the 4th or the 5th hole or something. After I'd outdriven Matty Brown, our new buddy who we played with that day, after I'd outdriven him like 2 or 3 holes in a row, and I did it again. I had him by like 15 or 20 yards on this hole. I hear him say to Chris, "Man, I got to come down and get fit by you." So I mean, that would not have happened, with the old equipment in hand. So that's a huge credit to the fitting process and the work that Chris does, because it makes it. I mean, it made an immediate difference for me.
Yeah, absolutely did. And that's kind of what we found with Ashton too. So Ashton gets in super juiced. One thing I will say about Ashton's setup is I already knew his shaft is optimal. The way he hits the ball with that thing, it's just money. So for him, it was just finding him a new head that was slightly more forgiving, that would get him just a little bit better spin rate numbers, that would get him just slightly more distance, and something that would tighten his dispersion up. Because the one thing I see with Ashton when he does play poorly with his driver is he has these dead pulls. They're horrendous. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna roast Ashton a little bit. They're fucking bad.
No, roast me.
Anybody that wants to see what it is,
like thins my soul.
Yeah,
it's
anybody
bad.
that wants to see what it is, go onto our Instagram, go back onto our reels, and check out the one from Vegas. It'll tell you a whole lot of what Ashton's fucking misses were with that thing. And so we tried a couple heads. I told him how good the Cobra was, and we tried that. Wasn't clicking. Tried a couple other heads, and then we got into the Rogue STLS, same head that I personally play. And I mean, it just instantly clicked. We threw his shaft in that thing, and we gained an extra 5 to 10 yards of carry, which he was already carrying it 290, rolling out to 300, 305. I had him when he left, when we finished up with his driver, carrying it as far as his total was, and then rolling out to 310, 315. Like, this thing was just juiced for him, and it was
And the big thing too, as you've said in the past, is like the extra distance is great, but like it's, I think you said before I put it, like the Rogue just only wants to go straight. Like, it's crazy how hot like the toe and heel of that thing are. Like, it just goes 290 right down the middle. Even on the no laying up ad for it, they're like, what? It's some like workshopped fake. It's like distance reciprocity, or they call it, or something. I don't know. The point is, you can hit it anywhere on the fucking face and it launches. It's pretty great.
It's and as you guys saw from, or especially Ashton saw from when I was in Vegas with my other driver. And then I got myself dialed into the same, we're in the same model shaft and head, which is hilarious. So we both play a Drago VA composite shaft, and we both play a Rogue STLS 9-degree head. But mine's definitely softer and lighter. His is the boardiest, heaviest version of that shaft that they offer. And just different spectrums, but the same results. Where I don't hit it as far as Ashton, but it's always fucking in the middle. And that's all I care about with my driver. Like, I'm a 260, 270 driver of the golf ball. Like, I'm not the longest guy. You know, that's my total, not my carry. My carry's about 245, 250. I'm just not a long driver of the golf ball. And that's because I'm a fat, chubby kid that doesn't work out. And if I want to get the distance, I could put the time in for it. But I like to play golf too much instead of spending time in the gym. So, and I eat way too many hot dogs while I'm out there. So, on another note, it just worked for Ashton. And then wedges were really easy.
Wait, real quick, Nick, you were flagging us down. What did you want to say?
I just wanted to come back to that Callaway marketing term that you were referencing earlier, Chief. You couldn't remember. It's spin robustness is the Callaway marketing term to use.
Thank you. So I mean, this sounds like I'm being fake. Thank you so much for finding that, because spin robustness. I said distance reciprocity. I mean, it's kind of the same. It's all just bullshit.
Such marketing fucking hoopla. Horrible.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Sally said on the podcast, he was like, I'm pretty sure this shouldn't be allowed. And it's like, yeah, it's called rollback. It's something that actually the USGA is considering, because you shouldn't be able to do this. But while it's legal, guys, go see Big Chris, because you should be able to whack it off the toe to 300. I would encourage that.
Golden setup. But then we got into wedges. And so one thing I'll tell people with wedges, there's no fucking art when it comes to fitting wedges. Wedges are wedges. I'll tell you that right now. Big thing in a wedge fitting is finding you the proper lie angle. That's a huge, huge thing, is getting you dialed into a proper lie angle. Second thing is finding the proper bounce for the customer. And the way you find proper bounce is by the attack angle that they bring to the ball. So with Nick, he is a very shallow wedge player. Doesn't bring a lot of attack angle into the ball. So for anybody that, you know, kind of clips the ball, doesn't take a large divot, you know, has a very positive attack angle, you want to have as little bounce as possible, because there's not a lot of turf interaction that's going on there. He's sweeping the ball. So finding the proper bounce for him, and then just getting him in, you know, a wedge that gives him the proper spin rates and distances that fill the gap from his pitching wedge and down is the most important thing. It's pretty quick once you find that we got Nick dialed in to the new TaylorMade MG3s, working great. One thing I do recommend anybody that's getting wedge fitted, get the same shafts or the same wedge version of the shaft in your wedges as you do in your irons. That's a big thing. You want the same weight, you want the same feel. You can go slightly heavier if you prefer that feel, but I would prefer to put the same iron shafts in your wedges. It's going to drastically help your game. And
Chris, why is that? One more time.
So
because I'd never heard that before you.
It creates a similarity in feel through your bag. So if your irons are swing weighted at the same amount, usually you want to have your wedges only swing weighted 1 or 2 weights heavier than with your irons. And the reason that is because the heavier the head weight, the more spin you're usually going to generate off the face. So you don't want to go too heavy because then you're going to lose distance. And then you're going to have to adjust your lofts to achieve the distances that you're looking, which the stronger you go with a wedge, the sharper the leading edge becomes, which means the more that the club is going to dig. So by not going heavier in the wedge and making stronger lofts to compensate for that, you're putting the same shafts that you have in your irons in your wedges to be able to have the same feel and profile through your entire set to be able to fill those gaps in properly. So that's the main thing with that. So once we got Nick dialed in, we got Ashton dialed in really quick with some Cleveland wedges, and we are off to the races. So next thing, before Ashton even got there, I actually fit Nick in a putter. And so we at Club Champion utilize this thing called the Sam Putt Lab. This thing is fucking awesome. It's one of my favorite things that I utilize for fitting. What this thing does is with 7 putts, it'll tell you the correct lie angle, loft angle, length of the putter, type of grip that you should have, style of head, and the proper toe hang. The one thing with putter fittings I will stress the most, and of all people, Nick will absolutely contest to this, is getting you in the proper toe hang to the style of putting stroke that you have is absolutely a game changer. Because if you've got a straight stroke where you don't have pretty much any arc in your stroke, but you're using something that's a 45, 60 degree toe hang, what's going to happen is that putter is going to be fighting your putting stroke. So a putter with heavy toe hang is wanting to have a very large arc in your putting stroke. And if you have that and you're a straight putter of the, straight path putter, it's going to fight against what your natural instinct is as a putting stroke. So what we found with Nick is he needed something that was face balanced. The putter that he has a 30, 45 degree toe hang. So it was fighting him, causing him very bad inconsistencies in his stroke. And so the minute that we kind of worked on all these putters and found him something that was a face balanced putter that had a little bit more weight to it, a little bit larger head than what he was used to, it was night and day. And so I have a very large collection of putters, like too many for one person to fucking have. There's no reason for it. And so I had this one putter that I've actually recently switched out of because I actually need more toe hang than this one offered. And this is a face balance putter. And it's a squareback Scotty Cameron that I've actually had for 19 years or so. And so when I found out that was what Nick needed, I went into my bag of putters and I pulled out a couple options that we could try out and play with. And the minute I bent this putter up to Nick's specs of what Sam Putt Lab told us, I mean, I'll let Nick tell you guys kind of what he saw after we switched into that putter.
Yeah, I mean, it was two two immediate things. The first was the feel on the backstroke with my putter I came in with. I would lose. I felt like I was losing the face on my backstroke a lot when I was putting because of the toe hang. So that was the big one. But the results that we saw was every single putt with this putter that you handed to me out of your bag. Every putt was starting on the same line and going dead straight every single time. It was the most repeatable putting stroke and most repeatable ball path off the putter face that I'd ever seen or ever experienced. And so it was it was really just an immediate improvement over the one that I brought in my old putter. So the results were kind of spoke for themselves the next couple of days when we went out and played, and I had two of the best putting days I've ever had. And that was following some pretty horrendous putting performances in previous weeks with my old putter. So
you didn't have one 3-putt the entire weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty sick. I putted great, and all the credit goes to you putting me in the right stuff. I mean, it really made all the difference in the world.
I mean, so just to relate this, Nick has only shot under 90 one time before he came out to Portland. I was able to get him a driver that was out of my collection of clubs. I was able to get him a putter out of my collection of clubs. We haven't even got him his iron set. We haven't got him his wedges. We haven't gotten him his 3-wood yet. In both rounds, he shot under 90. So
we do need to correct the record. We have to be fair. I shot 92 at Astoria.
92, okay.
But then the next day, shot 87. So personal best that very same weekend. And again, the proof is in the pudding. I came into that weekend with a 21 handicap, and I left after utilizing that driver hybrid and putter that you handed me, and my handicap was down to a 19. So within 2 rounds. So the results were immediate. I came in, like I said, a little apprehensive that my game wasn't going to be good enough to see many gains from a fitting, or that the gains would be marginal, but they were gigantic and immediate, which blew my mind. I could not believe the results that we saw. So thank you.
Oh, I mean, it was absolutely incredible to watch you play, especially when we were at the reserve, because I think all of us played pretty well that day, for the most part. And it just was exciting to watch you hit the ball, especially with the driver. And then when you're on the greens putting the way you putted, I mean, it was fantastic. Even though we beat you guys, on the 14th hole, just throwing that out there. We had the round wrapped up by the 14th hole, but that's another story. It was amazing to watch you play. I mean, your ringer did not hold up. I mean, it was pretty bad, when I beat a handicap that's better than mine by about 8 strokes.
Hey, Chris, did you guys win that match?
I think we just snuck it in there.
I think you guys won by 6. And yeah, I'm not even gonna go into it. Yeah, you played great, Chris. Let's put it that way. You played great.
But then we got Ashton fitted up.
I made a lot of bogeys from 65 yards, which was
it was a little bit of a tough scene. So hoping this dispersion and these new wedges tighten that up, tighten it up so that we have a little bit more of a competitive match next time I see the man in person.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be for, not all the marbles because we're going off first, but marbles will be involved.
They will be involved. Sure. We might have to have a side bet going for that round. But
I like that.
Yeah. But then we got Ashton fitted into a putter. And the big thing for Ashton is he's had to switch to his high school putter because the putter he was fitted in,
younger childhood.
Like, I mean, this putter is 11, old. 12. Like, it's one of the first 2-ball blades that they ever made. And he's had to go back to that putter because the putter he was fitted in at one of my competitors, it was a dog shit fitting. They kind of the similar thing with Nick. It just was not a good fitting. They didn't have good options for him. They couldn't switch over I don't know why they couldn't switch over the thing to left-handers, but they weren't able to get him actually fitted. And they were just like, oh, you came in with TaylorMade driver, or TaylorMade putter, let's get you in another TaylorMade putter. And it's like, what the fuck? That's not how a fitting process works. So we got Ashton properly fitted, and one thing that we had to do with Ashton was he forward presses the absolute shit out of a putter. So he puts the handle so far in front of his front leg that we just had to loft the shit out of his putter. The one thing you will know, anybody that forward presses needs to be in a full shaft offset. And so what I mean by that is something that's either slant necked, which the shaft sits a full shaft in front of the face, or an L neck, where it brings the shaft an entire shaft in front of the face. Because what that does is it gets them to already have their hands in front. So when they then forward press, it's less than what it would be on something that's either a double bend or anything like that. So we got him in the new Odyssey White Hot OG L neck 7 putter. So full shaft offset, a lot of loft. We had to give Ashton 4.5 degrees of loft on this guy. And then very flat in his setup. But it was just another game changer for Ashton, which unfortunately we got to order it. He's going to have to wait a while to get this in.
I don't know, game changer. I have not putted.
He hasn't putted with it other than in the shop, and he didn't even get to really put it in the shop because
in the shop.
I hate manufacturers. I hate you all. You do not make it easy for me to fit left-handers because you don't give me the options that are available to be able to fit them. I'm sorry to all my left-handers out there trying to get fitted for a putter. It's very difficult, and I did what I could, but this is
well. The big thing you said, Chris, is the thing that felt good is you said that the kind of putter that I'm in is not wrong, right? It's just antiquated. So we're going to get me essentially the new version of the same putter.
Yep.
And there's some stuff you were saying before we press record where, like, for example, I love my rounded putter grip, but it's very heavy. So you're going to put me in a
Garçon.
You can explain it, but yeah. So so it's going to be the same setup, much more optimized for what I actually do.
So Ashton does not like a putter grip that has a flat front to it. He doesn't like any grip that he actually has to line up his thumbs to the face of the putter. It just doesn't work for him. He's found that round putter grips work best for him. And you know what? As a good fitter, you want to hear that feedback from the person that you're fitting. You don't want to put them in something that they're not feeling comfortable in. And grips are one thing, especially for putters, as long as it's a correct size, you want to go with what feels best for the person you're fitting. So there's a company out there called Garçon that makes circular putter grips that are much lighter weight than the circular putter grips that Adele offers. So Adele offers these crazy fucking heavy rubber grips that Ashton's been playing for a while. And what that does is it counterbalances the putter. So you lose the weight in the head because you're adding so much weight into the handle of it. So what we're going to...
Which I never thought about. To your point, I mean, it literally, those grips feel like you're holding a tire.
Yeah.
Like when you're holding them without being on the club.
It's like solid rubber. Like these things are thick rubber fucking grips. And so what a Garçon is, it's a lightweight foam wrapped in like a faux leather kind of situation. Kind of like a Super Stroke grip, if anybody's ever played with one of those. But it's circular. So this thing will be in the shape that Ashton's used to, but it'll be a third of the weight of what he's used to. So it'll allow the putter to have a heavier weight, utilizing the MOI of what the Odyssey putter offers to get him a straighter, more true roll every time. And we found out another thing for Ashton is he's an insert boy. So milled faces do not work for him because he has a very quick tempo when it comes to his putting stroke. So we need something that softens the blow when he hits the ball. So something with either a TaylorMade insert with the Pure Roll or with the White Hot insert with Odyssey worked best for him. And him loving the 2-ball blade created, pretty much now that Odyssey brought back an L-neck version of the 7 is exactly the same putter as a 2-ball blade for the most part, with the same MOI, all of that's going to give him the feel that he loves and allow him to create true rolls. So all of that in a nutshell was the fitting that we experienced with these guys. I mean,
so good.
It was incredible to have them come out. We spent, Nick was with me all day. Ashton got in around 3:30, and we were at the shop from pretty much the minute he got off the plane until 1:00 in the morning, getting us all dialed in with a little bit of PF Chang's dinner break. But other than that, it was a fucking blast having you guys up. It really was.
Yeah.
And I'm so stoked to get you guys in these setups because you're just as big into the industry or into golf as I am. And Nick being a newer golfer, this is just going to invigorate that even more. It's going to make you love the game even more and get you out there playing twice as much. So it was a blast, fellas, and I really enjoyed it.
Dude, we can't
thank you enough, Chris.
Chris. Sorry, Ashton, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know we're saying the same thing. It's just your give a shit factor. And I think the thing that's so special, to kind of just call you out is I know you did it for us because we're your buddies and you're not going to be a club champion until 1 a.m. But it's very clear, Nick was saying, looking at the Google reviews of kind of your club champion, that you really stand out for your give a shit factor. So, again, I know you took special care of us because you're buddies, but you're good at what you do, dog.
Hey, I didn't take care of you guys any more than I would take care of anybody walking through that door. And that's one thing I will stress.
You're not there. You're not going to – do not tell people you'll be there until 12:30 on Friday.
I will not be there out of my actual hours that I occupy for the store hours. I'm not going to do that for anybody else. These guys are my homies. But the effort and how I go about my job is going to be just as strong and wanting to improve the people as much as I did for these guys. So, again, anybody that wants a proper fitting, a good fitting, please DM me, hit me up. I will absolutely steer you in the right direction. We've got a great pod coming up as well. If you want any more information on this, the CEO of my company, or was CEO, creator of my company, now is the head of sales for us. Nick Sherburne will be coming on a future pod here in the next few weeks. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great episode if you want some more info and backlog on what Club Champion is as a whole. So, all right, guys.
And also, not to pivot from this, but also this has been a heavy dose of equipment. We're going to get back to golf courses, public golf, superintendents. We got
another great episode coming up here in the next couple weeks as well with, again, our boy Akbar from Seamus and our boy Matty Brown, owner of Manzanita Golf Club, PGA Merchandiser of the Year, coming on talking about we're going to be talking about the state of public golf in the United States. So that's going to be a great one to be able to tune into.
Yeah, so more soon. But Nick, thank you for spending back-to-back weeks with us here. And the next time the three of us will be in person, we'll be at the cookout. I'm excited to talk about that too at the wonderful, wonderful Soul Park.
Can't wait.
Hell yeah.
All right, fellas.
Okay, boys, sleep well.
Later.
Peace.